Hi, Mark.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good to see you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Good to see you. This is a decade of opportunity for Central Asia and for Kazakhstan, at the very heart of Central Asia. So stability is critical. The young population of Kazakhstan is highly educated. They operate easily on the international stage. It has to be a level playing field. Open skies policy to investment. Successful investment is a marriage.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Astana Times YouTube channel. I'm your host Astana and I'm joined today by Mark Beer, the co-founder of 7 Pillars Law in Kazakhstan and the chairman of the Metis Institute. So Mark, thank you for joining us today.
It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
And welcome to Kazakhstan.
I think this is my 25th time or something now. It's brilliant to be back. This time I managed to do some skiing in Almaty and then come for this beautiful, fresh, cool winter's day in Astana.
So as I know you're quite familiar with Kazakhstan, so my first question would be to start with the investment landscape. So in your view, how would you assess the investment landscape in Kazakhstan and maybe what are some of the notable trends that have caught your attention lately?
So this is a decade of opportunity for Central Asia and for Kazakhstan, at the very heart of Central Asia. We see all of the indicators, all the economic indicators are heading in the right direction. The rule of law scores are heading in the right direction. We've got the wonderful financial centre, which for a foreign investor provides familiarity and security and trust into the investment landscape, using the financial centre to invest out into the broader Central Asia region. So the opportunity is absolutely massive over the next decade for Central Asia. But it's not without its challenge. This is also a decade of complexity. Complexity for Kazakhstan to the north, complexity for Kazakhstan to the east, and then obviously a very changing political landscape in the west. And the balancing act is going to be to stay open for investment and also to manage the complexity of an ever-changing world. And so far, Kazakhstan is doing a fantastic job, as are other Central Asian countries, are doing a fantastic job in balancing opportunity and complexity.
And what are some of the notable trends that you can mention in the investment landscape, not only in Kazakhstan, but also in the region of Central Asia?
So Central Asia is difficult because each country has its own specialism, if you will, reason to invest. Classically, Kazakhstan was oil and gas, mining, minerals and the like. And I think that diversification strategy that began a decade ago to move away from dependence on mining and minerals and natural resources and look at green economy, look at sustainability, look at diversification is the embodiment really of, sitting here at the financial centre. It's the embodiment of the reason, the rationale for having the financial centre. And so what we'll start to see, I think, is a very different form of investment, from investment in the stuff in the ground to investment in the development of the economy and of the people.
And in your view, what are some of the factors that make Kazakhstan as an attractive destination for foreign investors, given the current geopolitical developments as well?
Stability, and it has had one or two rocky road sort of moments in the last few years, but it's handled them well. It's a stable economy, it's a stable system, it's a stable government, so stability is critical. Trust, it's a system you can trust. It has choice. If you have a problem in Kazakhstan, you have an English language common law system you can use, you have arbitration that you can use, you have a Kazakh language court system that you can use. There's choice for an investor. Because if you think about an investment decision, we know the opportunities there, the returns are somewhere in the region of 20% a year. But when you balance out the return with the risk, it can reduce significantly. And what Kazakhstan has done, and it's brilliant really, is it said to investors, look, come, you're welcome, bring your wealth, grow our economy, create jobs, create a better life for the citizens, invest sustainably in the development of our country, and we'll make it safe for you. And we'll make it safe in a way that you understand. So if you're coming from America, use the financial centre, English language, common law. If you're coming from Georgia, then no problem, you can use a system which is familiar to you, which can operate using a language you're comfortable with and a system that you're familiar with. So it's that creation of trust, that that ability for people to have choice, that's what's driving growth and investment. And if you look at investment, recently the shift is moving away from investment just in oil and gas into a much broader category of investment into financial services and the softer side of an economy, which actually delivers real long-term economic growth for society.
And indeed, speaking about investments, Kazakhstan was just recently ranked 6th in the FDI intelligence ranking. This is a division of Financial Times, and the report said that investors should look at the markets in this report, including Kazakhstan. And according to you, what are some of the promising sectors, besides oil and gas, of course, that you could see in Kazakhstan?
Well, I think definitely the financial services sector, because we're starting to see technology at its core. Yeah. Definitely the young population of Kazakhstan is highly educated. So looking at investment at startups, at growth at SME, massive opportunity. What I'm not seeing so much at the moment is investment in manufacturing, and I'd like to see more of it. And one of the challenges has always been complexity. You know, if you want to invest in a highly skilled battery plant, gigafactory in the US, it's so easy. In fact, the government even gives you subsidy to do it. In Kazakhstan still, when you start to get into manufacturing, there's a lot of bureaucracy in the system, which makes it less attractive than other markets. So I think what we've seen in terms of systemic, let's call it ease, in the mining sector through the Ministry of Infrastructure has done a great job. Their online application portal, licensing portal, everything is online. What we've started to see in the financial services sector with the National Bank and the deregulation and the ease with which one can operate, obviously in a compliant way, I'd like to start to see that happening in the manufacturing sector so that we can start to bring significant investment into secondary product and tertiary product. If we could take all of Kazakhstan's mineral wealth and rather than just selling it abroad, convert it into a product which is much more valuable on the market, then that's got to bring further jobs, further opportunities to Kazakhstan instead of selling it off to another country that makes the profit margin. So oil and gas, very important. Mining, very important. Financial services, fast rising. I'd like to see more investment in manufacturing, certainly something that we're promoting.
Yeah, and indeed in the recent address to the nation, President Tokayev also spoke about the need to invest more in the manufacturing sector, which should become the real drive of the economic growth, not oil and gas as it has been for 30 years and more. And he also spoke on multiple occasions about that good faith investors shouldn't be worried. In Kazakhstan, they will be protected. So in your view, how is the legal protection of investors in Kazakhstan?
So we depend very heavily when we're bringing foreign investors in on the financial centre, the Astana International Financial Centre. It has an incredibly solid court system and judicial system, judges from around the world, very good rules, very simple, transparent, online. It's got a great team here that run it. So when investors come and they see the quality, the calibre, the skill set that's available to resolve problems and the enforceability of the decisions in Kazakhstan, even against the government, right? Which is important. I'm not suggesting it's an issue just for Central Asia, but in many countries around the world, the courts are great until the government's involved. Not the case here. The financial centre is able to issue judgments and the government pays. So that's what I think the president was referring to, saying if you come here, you invest your skill, you invest your money, you grow the market, you grow jobs, you create opportunities, and you do it in a good faith basis, not to just pillage, not to just grab and run, but to really, really invest, truly sustainably invest, the country will look after you. And it will look after you as any country should, using the rule of law and using a solid and good court system. And I definitely don't want to suggest that the financial centre courts are any better or worse than the onshore courts. The onshore courts, as you know, I sit on the International Council. They are magnificent. They were the first court system in the world to be able to respond to COVID and go entirely online. And I wrote a research piece on that, which was published in a highly regarded journal. They're a phenomenal system. They've had great leaders. And I think Kazakhstan could be very proud of them. And if I was to bring an investor from I don't know, a Central Asian country, they would be much more comfortable and familiar with the onshore system than the AIFC system, which is English language and common law. So it's that choice that Kazakhstan offers to investors, and I think that's the comment. Come here, we'll make it safe, and we'll make it safe in a way that you understand.
And what do you think should be the preferences offered? Do they differ to foreign investors and local investors?
No. No, and it's a really good point. No, you can't have two tiers of investor. If I'm a successful businessman from England and you're a successful businesswoman from Belarus, why should we be treated differently? And 100%, if you're a successful businesswoman in Kazakhstan, why should you get less rights than me or more rights? Absolutely, it has to be a level playing field. Open skies policy to investment. If someone is willing to create opportunity and to create jobs and to pay taxes and to follow the law, then they should be welcome whatever colour their skin, whatever their passport. So in Kazakhstan, which is quite a rare thing, if you're a local investor or a foreign investor, you can use the same system. You can use AIFC, whatever your nationality. You can use onshore, whatever your nationality. You can go to arbitration, whatever your nationality. You get access to the ministries and the opportunities that they present, whatever your nationality. So absolutely level playing field.
That's good to hear, because it seems often that there is so much talk about foreign investors, but also we shouldn't forget about local investors who really know the landscape, the economic landscape and the investment landscape here in the country. So since I mentioned the economy, and we all know that countries are still reeling from the consequences of the COVID pandemic, and there were plenty of other geopolitical developments that have affected countries worldwide. How would you assess the current economic growth in Kazakhstan? I mean, the real economic growth.
And that's the hard thing, right? To understand the real economic growth.
Yeah.
Because you and I can read a lot of articles, a lot of publications, a lot of data, but there isn't a sort of central source from which we can really scrutinize and understand. It's all anecdotal. It seems to me to be doing well. It seems to me to be producing the results that are expected. I think the vision is solid. As I used to live in Dubai, and Mohammed bin Rashid, the ruler of Dubai and Prime Minister, he would always say, look, you've got to be able to have an idea. You've got to be able to develop that idea into something that works. But the hardest part is taking the idea that you've developed and making it a success, execution of the idea. And whilst I think we're seeing a very solid vision for the new economy, I think President Tokayev calls it the new economy or the new economic model, clear vision. What I'm looking forward to is seeing that implemented throughout the government, throughout the ministries, so that everybody's in the orchestra playing to the same tune. And at that point, I think we will really start to see the economic drive and powerhouse, that acceleration that we want to see. Because if every government department and every minister and every senior business official is playing the same music within an orchestra, it's going to sound beautiful. But if some people are playing this tune and some people are playing this tune and someone's gone to the toilet and they've disappeared and it's changing every time and you're first violinist now but tomorrow you're going to play the trombone, it's not as good. So I'm really hoping we'll see that unity of government behind the vision of the president. I think we will. And I want to pick up on a point earlier. Successful investment is not foreign or local. Successful investment is a marriage. Successful investment is somebody bringing skills and experience and wealth and intellectual property that they've developed elsewhere. Finding a local investor who brings market knowledge, culture, connections, familiarity, putting them together and the sum being greater than their parts. It isn't about a mining company coming in, extracting and leaving. And it isn't about a property company developing property in Astana. It is about bringing an amazing corporation from another country with an incredible intellectual property and skills and bringing investment from Kazakhstan and support from Kazakhstan as well, putting them all together into this marriage which creates a much stronger bond, a much more sustainable bond than the individuals could bring together. That I think we're starting to see more of now, and that's what I hope I really hope the new economic model starts to promote that marriage of investment, not just a single flow.
And I really like how you put it, like successful marriage, because it really conveys the essential meaning behind the investments. So since we also continue speaking about the economy, what are some of the specific economic successes and achievements over the past few years that you could mention and that could potentially also impact the investment landscape moving forward?
I think there have been very many instances. I don't tend to look for the individual elements because, you know, we can have a successful dinner, but it doesn't make for a successful breakfast. So I don't so much look at the individual elements, but look at the trend. And we are starting to see some good trends, positive trends around sustainable investment. We're seeing some great, you know, organizations and companies. We're starting to see Kazakh companies succeed globally as well, and we have done for the last decade. You know, Air Astana, it's announced the IPO now. It's going to raise money in 3 jurisdictions, I believe, or certainly 3 markets. So we're going to see international interest grow. That brand, the Air Astana brand, which is such a phenomenal brand, such a good product, that will start to get known more and more around the world. People focus more on Kazakhstan. I think the mega trend, the shift towards financial services as a sector, was the opening of the financial centre, only 5 years ago?
Yeah.
What people, and you know, what people don't understand about the financial centre is in 5 years, it has done more than any other financial centre in the world in terms of business, in terms of licenses, in terms of investment, in terms of attracting foreigners. It's like an unsung hero. It's like the jewel in the crown that's covered over and people don't see it. But that financial centre, I look over here because it's just outside the window, that financial centre has actually been more successful than any other international financial centre in history on almost every metric. Yet in Kazakhstan...
And how does that success is measured? I mean...
That's what I mean. You sort of, you can measure it on number of new licenses. You can measure it on investment that comes in. You can measure it in GDP created. However, whatever measure you take, almost every measure, it has outperformed any other financial centre in its first 5 years, okay? But we don't talk about it. It's such a well-kept secret. And I feel there are probably many of those. I know that because obviously I was involved in the creation of it. But there will be many other success stories throughout Kazakhstan, many others, where they haven't got a voice. People don't know about them. But there's so much to be, as a foreigner when I come in, there's so much to be proud of here. You know, there's so much skill, there's so much talent. The young people here are world-class. Not that the old people aren't, like me, but the young people are world-class, right? Really world-class. They operate happily in multiple cultures. Because Kazakhstan has so many cultures within it, they operate easily on the international stage. They know how to deal with people at every level because Kazakhstan, frankly, people are brought up to understand about how to deal with people at the very top, to dealing with, you know, the person that's helping you, you know, load your shopping bags. So there's so much potential, so much opportunity, so much talent, and so many, I think, golden moments that perhaps, you know, it's silly for me as a foreigner to say it, but perhaps there's an opportunity to celebrate success more. People are first to tell me about problems here, right? I don't know whether you, maybe it's just me. They're first to tell me about problems, then tell me about successes. I go to America, no one even mentions a problem is an opportunity. And they always tell me, we did this, we're the greatest, we do the other. Now, you know, like we laugh about it, but it gives you such a positive feeling. Indeed. And I think there's a lot to celebrate here. We should do a bit more celebrating of what's being achieved. The financial centre being one example close to my heart, but there are many others in the sector where, you know, I think they need a global voice.
And I think there has been a lot of talk also to support young talents and also to develop the financial sector by the country's top leadership as well. And we know the Bolshak Scholarship Program that have sent thousands of young talents abroad who return back home and now given back what they learned back there.
Look at the institutions that people have gone to. They haven't gone abroad to go to some third-rate university.
Yeah, of course.
They've gone to Harvard, they've gone to Yale, they've gone to Oxford, they've gone to Cambridge, they've gone to Queen Mary's, they've gone, do you know what I mean? They've gone to the world's leading universities. So it reinforces enormous talent, given the opportunity to experience the global, marketplace, come back here, and they are going to be driving the future. That's the future of Kazakhstan. That harnessing that talent is going to be the reason why the country continues to do well.
Well, we can only hope for that then. And so central to that future is also the reforms that are ongoing in Kazakhstan. And given your vast experience in law, I would particularly want to talk about the legal reforms here in Kazakhstan. We've seen the re-establishment of the Constitutional Court and many other legal reforms. So could we talk about that more? So what's your view on that?
So reforms must never stop. It's always about learning, developing, improving, growing. So I see reforms as a very positive transformation, evolution, not revolution, but evolution of any system. On the legal system, I've been involved with Kazakhstan for a decade now, maybe slightly more. The seismic changes in the legal system in that short period have been incredible to watch. We've seen digitization of the court system like nowhere else in the world coming out of the Supreme Court. We have seen the move from 5 tiers of justice to 3 tiers of justice to make it more efficient. We've seen cases that involve the average citizen, debt cases. It's a big issue, debt, right? Debt cases, which used to take years and years and years, fast track so that people get the right answer quickly. We've seen the Human Rights Commission and the incredible work that the head of that commission, who now is chair of the Constitutional Court, really wonderful, wonderful, internationally accepted and recognized work that they did. Now, this is not in a lifetime. This is not in 50 years, which is what it takes many countries to do one of those changes. This is in a decade. And that's just some examples. The creation of a new court system with foreign judges, foreign language, okay? That's a big thing, all done in the same decade. So Kazakhstan it's another thing, can be enormously proud that it continues to evolve and develop and grow and adjust and flex and adjust to the needs of the people. That court system is there to serve the people, not the other way around. So it has to keep adjusting as society adjusts, right? It has to. And it does a really good job of it. Now, you'll say to me quite rightly, is it perfect? Yeah, and of course it's not. Okay, but go find me a system that's perfect, because we'll struggle.
Nowhere.
You and I could probably look at a country and say, okay, they do this really well. This is good. So Delaware does bankruptcy really well. Okay, great. That's brilliant. Okay. Let's do treaty arbitration. Oh, they do that really well in London. Yeah, that's really good. Okay, they do that really well. Turkey, they do this really well. Construction disputes, they do that really well in this market. Australia does fantastic work in maritime. Great. There's no country that has the perfect system, because there isn't a perfect system. So what I've seen here is a realization that a decade ago the system could do with improvement, and then the vision to understand what that improvement should be. And we come back to the ability of the leadership, and the court systems here have had great leaders, the ability of the leadership to transfer the vision into a reality in a short period of time. It's been really wonderful to not so much be a part of it, but to be a friend and someone who stands alongside it and sort of marvels in what's happened. Can it get better? Yes, it will get better, 100%. But that's the same in every country. It will get better and better with time.
And continue our talk about the legal sector. In one of the articles that I've read, in one of your articles that I've read online, you mentioned the correlation between well-functioning courts and economic prosperity. Can you share with us some of your insights on that?
Yeah.
And how does it play out here in Kazakhstan as well?
So it's an economic model which was looked at in terms of what value does a good court system bring. And it started, I tell you, it didn't start because I'm an economist. It started because when you go to central government and ask for money, they always say, well, why should I give it to you? And if you say, well, because we've got a court, they go, yeah, back of the queue, go to the back of the queue, right? We're going to give it to the foreign investment minister. We're going to give it to this minister. We're going to give it to that. Maybe you're not getting it. And when I ran a court system, we would go every year and we had to ask for money. So we had to speak the language of finance. So we did a lot of research, and actually we borrowed from research that had been done by the UN and other, solid, good bodies. And what we learned was, if you have a well-functioning court system, it adds about 50 basis points of growth a year to the economy. That's 0.5%, which doesn't sound like a lot. But when you look up the size of the Kazakh economy and you work out what 0.5% is every year, the value of the courts is much more than their cost. Now, how does that translate? Well, it translates into a higher economic growth, but what does that mean for the citizen? Not a lot, really. It also translates into about a 2% reduction in the cost of credit. Now, credit is the lifeblood of an economy. People don't like to hear it, but it is. So if you can make credit more available to business to expand, more available to individuals to aspire, to get the house and apartment that they wanted, and do it on an affordable basis. If you can achieve that by simply having a well-functioning institution, why not? In fact, it's a shame for a country not to do that. And if you can start to get credit at a sensible level, it's still expensive in Kazakhstan, credit. If you can get it to a sensible level, it allows Kazakh companies to compete globally. Because when, let's say there's a Swiss company, I'll pick Switzerland as an example. Say there's a Swiss company, pharmaceutical, and they're for sale. The Americans can borrow money to buy that company at 2%, 1.5%, okay, maybe a little bit more now, but that kind of margin. To compete for that purchase from Kazakhstan, where can you borrow at 2%? You borrow 8%, 9%. So the Kazakh company, a solid company, a good company that wants to grow globally, it can't compete with the Americans and the Swiss and others because of the cost of credit. So an institution that lowers that cost allows Kazakhstan to be competitive globally. So you've got increased economic growth, 0.5% a year. You've got 200 basis points or 2% off the cost of credit. And what that drives is jobs. Because in every system that follows the rule of law, that has a solid, trusted court system, that delivers justice on time, that people trust, it drives investment. Foreign direct investment floods in.
That you mentioned earlier.
Trust, and that investment creates new jobs. So take Dubai. Dubai's financial services sector was about 3% of the economy before the financial centre. Within a decade, it was 14% of the economy. That is a total diversification away from what was their, you might call their core business. And it created 25,000 jobs. Not relocating people, new jobs. Successful, wealthy, good-paying jobs for talented people, local people and international people. So that comes out of, I think, building a solid and trusted platform, which requires a solid and trusted court. You see the connectivity. So create a better economy, lower the cost of credit so people can aspire and business can succeed globally, and create jobs. For what? For a small court system? It's obvious. And that's what they've built in the financial centre. They've built a really solid, good, dependable, trusted, excellently run, good rules, great judges system that the world looks at and says, yeah, I trust it. And that's why I think we're seeing that level of investment is coming in, because people trust the system.
Yeah, and trust is very important for both business relations and for personal relations too, as we know. So you mentioned that you've been working with Kazakhstan for a decade already and even more. What are some of the major 3 developments that you could outline here in Kazakhstan, the changes that you observed over this period of time here?
There has been like a constant change, prime ministers and ministers and government and business leaders and everything else. I think that's good. I think it's great. It's always good to bring talent and the like, although, sustainability long term is also good. So there's been a huge amount of change. I think what's the number one thing that really is substantial, and it is the financial centre, because it brings a new reality. It brings a new way of functioning, a new way of running a business. It brings a new level of governance, a new level of trust, a totally new environment for this region. Puts Kazakhstan at the heart of the Central Asian economy, because people use the financial centre as the gateway into other markets. So that is I would really say it's the number one seismic, substantial, fundamental, systemic change which required the constitution to be amended, which has happened in the last decade. That's not to belittle the many, many, many other really important changes that have happened across the economy. I'm not a politician, but the diversification or, that was led out of the first presidency into the second presidency, empowering people in the local community, making sure that there's more representation, that local people actually vote for the people that they are going to be running their region. That is, I'm sure if I was a political analyst, I would say that's the most systemic change. If somebody was looking at the economy and the diversification of the economy and the ease of doing business, they would say that's been a systemic change. Let me tell you, 10 years ago, people won't remember, but it wasn't easy to do business here, right? It was hard. There's a lot of bureaucracy, lots of layers, lots of paper, and that's got much better now. So although I think there have been great developments in a number of areas, the number one, I think, really vital piece of the jigsaw for future prosperity, for creating wealth and jobs and opportunity for the next generation of Kazakhs who will be operating globally, who will be as connected to Shanghai as they are to Seattle, is the creation of the financial centre.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark, for joining us today. That's a wrap on my questions.
It's a great pleasure and lovely to see you again. Thank you.